In the early 1990s, the survival horror genre has birthed into the gaming industry thanks to the 1992 Lovecraftian gem Alone in the Dark. However, it wasn't until Resident Evil where survival horror became more mainstream to the general public. Because of it, we got even more iconic horror IPs like Silent Hill, Dino Crisis, Siren, and Fatal Frame to name a few. But what if I told you there was another survival horror title that came out just before Resident Evil took the industry by storm? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing another traditional survival horror game that came out just 1 year before Resident Evil. Clock Tower, made by the Japanese studio Human Entertainment, released initially in 1995. Unlike its competitors, Clock Tower is a 2D point-and-click horror game that has you play as an orphan girl who was relocated to a mansion where she is stalked by a man holding giant scissors, and she has to do whatever it takes to escape and survive. This game was initially released for the SNES in Japan, and for some reason, it was never released outside of the country until a new version of it was made in 2024 called Clock Tower Rewind. This is basically a port of the original game with new additions like illustrated animations, some features that were exclusive in the PS1 version, and a music intro performed by Mary Elizabeth McLean. Yes, this Mary Elizabeth, who also did the singing for the Silent Hill 3 intro. Also, as I learned during my research, she also played Alex Wesker in Resident Evil Revelations 2. Because I never played any previous versions of the Clock Tower, I am mostly just gonna cover the Rewind version on this video, and I will mention only the most interesting differences that it has compared to the old versions. As always, let's talk about the development history on this game, because there might be some interesting details that you probably didn't know about this classic. Without further ado, let's get started with the video. Clock Tower was directed by
Hifumi Kono,
and his main motivation for making it was to pay homage to one of his favorite film directors, Dario Argento. Sounds familiar? That's because his name was also mentioned when I reviewed Alone in the Dark 1992 on my channel last year.
とにかく高校から大学にかけてすごくホラー映画を見まくってまして。
This means that Dario Argento is partially the main reason these particular developers created these iconic horror titles. This has to be the craziest coincidence I've ever seen in my research stage. This guy deserves more credit for being such a big influence on the horror genre in gaming. Anyways, while many of Argento's work was an inspiration for Kono, the ones that stood out to him the most were the 1985 film Phenomena and the 1977 film Suspiria. However, Clock Tower borrows most of its ideas and concepts from Phenomena, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, Kono joined Human Entertainment after graduating college. He had a very small team working on this game, and it was his first directorial role where he had to create a new IP, making everything from scratch, because the last game he directed before this one was a sequel to a racing game.
一応ディレクションはその前にヒューマングランプリっていうレースゲームの、2からディレクションしてたんですけど、
His team didn't believe that a horror game with the lack of action combat would work, but he still kept going despite the concerns. Kono worked on the script all by himself, and his main goal was to capture the atmosphere and base the horror on subtlety and audio design. According to this interview, which you can view within the Rewind version of the game by the way, his work on the character models was inspired by another game from Human Entertainment called Twilight Syndrome. If you look at these particular characters in the game, you can see a lot of similarities. He used real-life models to take photos in front of a blue screen and digitize them into the game. What is really interesting is that the main character of Clock Tower was modeled after one of the employees of the studio, and she was dressed exactly like the character in the game, with the blue dress and the white shirt. This was improvised because Kono and his team had no idea what the protagonist would look like, and they decided to go with how the employee was dressed for her work shift. This is one of the best examples of work smarter, not harder. Alright, with all these details out of the way, let's cut through the chase and talk about Clock Tower. When you start the game, it has one of the best title screens you could ever see in a game released in the 90s. It just couldn't get any better than this. Using the clock bell for each letter to appear on the screen for a game called Clock Tower is absolute genius, and it tells the players what they sign up for. I wonder for whom the bell tolls. Get it? The story begins with a group of 4 orphan girls being escorted to a mansion where they have been recently adopted by a guy named Simon Barrows. You play as Jennifer Simpson, and her friends that have been adopted alongside her are Laura, Annie, and Lotes. They were all raised in Granite Orphanage, and they are being escorted by this woman named Mary. Jennifer asks Mary how her new home is gonna be like, and she tells her to not worry, quote unquote. They arrive at this mansion in the woods named Clock Tower. Credits rolling. The girls stay in the main hall while Mary goes to seek the owner of this mansion. Sure, nothing bad will happen. Jennifer can talk with all the other girls, but they all lose patience and Jennifer goes to check on Mary. Unfortunately, all hell breaks loose when she hears someone screaming in the main hall, and everyone is gone. Just FYI, we are not gonna talk about the story in a linear way for this video because it's a very simple one and the game is not very long to complete. Depending on your play style, the game can be finished in just 2 hours, or even 1. I even dare to say that it's even shorter than Alone in the Dark. Because of that, we're gonna have different topics in a specific order throughout this review. First, let's talk about Jennifer Simpson. She's a 14-year-old girl who grew up in an orphanage after the loss of her parents. Jennifer is heavily inspired by the main character from the film Phenomena, Jennifer Corvino, who was played by the famous actress Jennifer Connelly. Notice how I mentioned Jennifer 3 times in one sentence. So Jennifer was inspired by Jennifer, who was played by Jennifer, and the game programmer is named Jennifer, whose mother's name is named Jennifer, and the floor was made Jennifer, and my chair is made by someone named Jennifer, and the game's director was bred by someone named Jennifer, and then the game was made by so many girls named Jennifers, and then the writer was inspired by someone named Jennifer, and then the scene was made by Jennifer, and the game that I played. This is a game where I play as a Jennifer, just someone named Jennifer. So anyways, Jennifer, who I'm already sick of calling her name so many times, appears to be a sheltered girl who is polite and open-minded, and her personal goal is to learn the whereabouts of her father, who disappeared when she was a child. That's kinda the only thing I can tell about her character as a whole. Her main objective is to survive the horrors of the Clock Tower, also known as Barrows Mansion, situated in the mountains of Norway. This place consists of 2 wings and a courtyard. Therefore, this game only has 2 major areas for you to progress through the story, the east and west wings. This is just another reason why this game is very short. Anyways, there's something strange about the structure of this mansion that I need to point out. For some reason, when you go through this hall on the right, Jennifer somehow ends up on the other side of the courtyard. Shouldn't she be outside the mansion? You know what? Let me show this on a paper if you don't mind. I have nothing else to say. Throughout this mansion, you encounter so many strange things, like being attacked by dolls, being strangled with a hand that comes through a mirror, curtains that get windy out of nowhere, a phone ringing repeatedly despite not being able to answer it, a black cat coming out of nowhere to scare our parents, and a very annoying talking parrot. I honestly can't tell what he's saying. I'll kill you or I hate you. Either way, you have to cover this stupid parrot with this blanket if you don't want it to cause any trouble. This game is pretty much a point and click adventure. You only have two directions to go and you have to click on things to examine stuff or enter a new room. The puzzles in this game can be a little bit confusing depending on the player themselves. Some puzzle items can be found in the exact same place in each playthrough, some can have different locations, like the key for the West Wing area, and speaking of which, believe me when I say that all the rooms in the West Wing are completely randomized. What I mean is that the rooms change their locations in every single playthrough. Oh, you wanted to reach the room with the puzzle key? Well, too bad, this is the bathroom now, so you gotta explore somewhere else. Oh, you expected to reach the jar room on the first floor? Nah, it's on the second floor now. I understand what they were trying to do with this design choice, but it is poorly executed in my opinion. And it is basically a nightmare for speedrunners. I do like exploring, but I want to know exactly where I want to go instead of just guessing which room is what. I just don't want to waste so much time looking for my target areas during replays. Now with all these specific details out of the way, let's talk about the major conflict in this story. Before Jennifer reaches the second hall of the East Wing, she hears a noise in the bathroom. And you have two options. You can either explore the bathroom or just go straight to the East Wing hallway. But I think it would be more natural for Jennifer to check out the bathroom. And when she does, this happens. Yup, we finally meet the most iconic villain of this franchise, Scissor Man. This is probably the very first rendition of a stalker enemy in a horror game, way before Mr. X, Nemesis, Chris Walker, and the Xenomorph to name a few. According to Hifumi, this idea of a villain holding these giant scissors came from two different things. First is the poster of the 1981 film The Burning, where you see this guy threatening this couple with these garden scissors. Second is the very first few minutes of the movie Phenomena. Spoilers if you want to see this movie completely blind. This movie begins with a girl who misses her bus, she gets chased by someone, and she gets killed with scissors, getting stabbed through her chest. And thus, the Scissor Man was born. So I think you already know what his character is gonna serve. Scissor Man will randomly appear a lot in this game to give you an instant game over, even in the most comedic places. The only way for you to escape is to hide in the closet, in the bathroom, or under the bed. Or you can use your surroundings to knock him out cold. Also, you have to push a certain button in order to perform your defense ability, which is basically a quick time event. I especially like this part with the shovel.
Oh no, this girl grabbed a shovel. I'm just gonna go 3 feet away, then reach the other side instead of going directly towards her, and then prepare my attack.
So that's pretty much what this game has to offer in terms of the gameplay loop. Solve and explore while avoiding the conflict with the Scissor Man. So back to the first encounter. If you decide to go to the left instead of the bathroom, a different scenario will play out. So, as you can see, one of your friends is gonna die and it depends on your choices. You can either have Laura die in the bathroom or Annie being plunged to death from the skylight. But there is something strange about the fate of these girls, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Let's talk about the rewind version of the game for a second, shall we? In this version, you can rewind to the game time, because, you know, this version is called Clock Tower Rewind. I'll see myself out. But seriously though, this is a useful mechanic because it helps you fix some mistakes that you made, like not pressing the QTE enough or picking the wrong room. Another difference is that Scissor Man will actually follow you through the door that you came from. He used to actually teleport somewhere in the house when you enter a certain area in the previous versions of the game. The last addition of this version is that you get to view some concept arts, some interviews with the main creator, and some newly made animations which help the players understand the lore of the game much better. Back to the story, you do your survival routine, and all of a sudden you can have an encounter with Miss Mary in the phone room. Mary tells Jennifer to chill out, and she gives her a drink to calm her down. Unfortunately, she turns out to be a traitor and knocks Jennifer out with her drink.
What a twist!
Jennifer ends up in a shack cell with a guy who has been rotting there for weeks or months. He suggests that you give him some food, because if you do not possess the ham from this particular fridge, he will eat you to death. Once you give him the ham, this guy reveals himself to be Burroughs. Yes, this is Simon Burroughs, the guy who adopted the girls, quote unquote. And he tells you that something is watching you from the cradle under the sun, whatever that means. A few seconds later, Lord Ex Machina comes out of nowhere to free Jennifer from the cell, but unfortunately, she gets killed outside the shack by Mary with a shotgun. And the only way for you to escape is to knock her out with this stick near the door. And you continue your routine. Kinda strange that you can't find Lord's body anywhere in the courtyard. Whatever, to reach the final level of the game, you have to find a specific ritual room in the West Wing hallway, and you need either a statue or a cane to open this particular trapdoor that leads you to the underground. On your way down, you see Mary dressed in a black robe going past the guard dog. I mean, come on, how could this not be Mary? There is no one else in the game with the same height as her. It could be unfortunate for you to do some backtracking if you haven't found some certain items. To get past this part, you need the black robe which you can find on the second floor of the East Wing, and the perfume that is located in the very first bedroom at the beginning of the game. There is no way for you to get past this dog without these items. Anyways, you continue further in this area, and Jennifer meets up with a new friend behind these giant curtains. Oh, did I say new friend?
I lied.
This is a giant humanoid blob creature that serves as the quote-unquote boss fight of the game. Honestly, this is not even a boss fight in my opinion, because this whole sequence is entirely scripted. Jennifer runs away from him, you have zero control of the situation, and all you need to do is press the action button to complete this QuickTime event, thus setting this creature on fire. That was kinda lame if you ask me.
Now that we are here, let's talk about all the villains and their backstories before we get to the finale of this classic.
So the full name of this woman who started this incident in the first place is Mary Burroughs. At some point in her past, she married Simon Burroughs, and she gave birth to twin sons with the help of a specific doctor in November 1986. Unfortunately, once her sons came out of the womb, the babies started eating the doctor's right hand right away, because they had some sort of a curse inside their bodies. Therefore, he suggested Mary that they should be put down to prevent a danger for any other individuals. She, of course, disagreed with this decision, and to make matters worse, she sealed him in the room where she gave birth, to have him rot and die slowly. You can actually find this room in the West Wing area, but you need to avoid meeting Mary in this room, because otherwise, all the clues and items in this room will disappear. When you reach this place, this is where Jennifer learns the whole truth about this madness. The corpse that she finds in this room is none other than the doctor who helped deliver the twins, and his name is Walter Simpson, Jennifer's father. So yeah, Mary is the main reason Jennifer became an orphan in the first place. When you examine Walter's corpse, Jennifer reads his memo while holding her father in her hands, and she learns everything about the Burroughs family. Simon was also against the idea of his twin children. Therefore, he tried to kill his wife at some point in the past, but he failed and she locked him in the cell. However, she keeps him alive in the end, not for the love purposes, but to force him to become a cannibal. In the end, Mary's twin sons happen to be the following: the blob creature and the scissor man. That's right, throughout this entire game, you were being chased by a child this whole time. So the real names of Mary's twins are Dan and Bobby. While they're both twins, being just 8 years old, they are not the natural type. And according to the lore of this game, they are both demons. How these children became such things and why they look so different from each other is unknown. But after their birth, Mary became obsessed with black magic and occultism. Therefore, she learned that the only way for her sons to live longer is to feed them human flesh. That is how she became a serial killer. She lured people to this mansion, killed them, and made them dinner for her sons. And her husband as well. She turned them into cannibals.
This is such a simple yet very effective backstory. I think Mary Barrows as a character deserves more recognition in the survival horror community. I know Bobby is more iconic because of the giant scissors, but Mary is the most evil character in the game, also the smartest. Bobby and Dan are just victims being raised and used by their own mother. So yeah, this is probably some of the best lore I've ever learned from a horror game released in the 90s. With all that being said, let's wrap up the story and help Jennifer escape this nightmare. By the way, this game features not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 9 endings.
That's quite big. Impressive.
But before we get into that, let's talk about Jennifer's friends for a second, because each of them have different fate in the game, which will affect the ending that you're gonna get.
Out of all the girls in this frame, Lot is sadly the only one who doesn't survive this madness, no matter which ending you get. But she does have 2 ways to die. Like I mentioned, she can die in the courtyard if you end up in the shack cell with Simon. Otherwise, she will end up in the underground. After getting past the dog, go all the way to the right, where you can find Lot laying on the ground, being sacrificed for some ritual stuff. Before she passes, she gives Jennifer some hints of how to kill her pursuers in the end. So yeah, all of that leaves us with only 2 girls that can survive with Jennifer at the end of the game, Laura and Annie. But here's the thing, one of them is actually forced to die in order for the other one to live. You cannot have both of them alive in the end. Just like Lot, both of these girls have their own ways to die. You can find Laura dead either on the bathtub where you first encounter Barbie or inside this armor in the phone room. Annie has 3 ways to die. As mentioned, Annie can die by being plunged to death from the skylight if you don't check the bathroom. Otherwise, you can randomly hear her scream in this hallway. And if you look at the courtyard through this window, Annie is seen being pushed out the 2nd story window, falling to her doom.
Not my policy.
Last but not least, the only way for you to trigger Annie's 3rd fate is to not check either of these particular doors. All you have to do is reach this hallway, get some rock from this rubble, make a hole in this wall, explore the courtyard, and this happens. What a good friend you are, Jennifer. And this is also the 3rd scenario of you meeting Bobby.
What's really strange and bizarre about these girls is that, I kid you not, the only way for you to have one of them stay alive until the end is to avoid getting in contact with them in any way, shape or form. Here's what I mean.
If you want Laura to stay alive, don't check the bathroom or the armor in the phone room. If you want Annie to stay alive, do not go straight to the east wing hallway or the courtyard through this hall from the blocked hallway. And if you happen to hear a scream in this hallway that leads to the west wing, do not, and I mean do not check the window. As long as you do not witness her 2nd story fall, she will live at the end.
What? How does that make any sense? This is so ridiculous that the only way to save them is by not looking at them. Imagine if this worked in real life as well.
Hello? Excuse me, is this Aaron Blue? Yeah, that's me. Sorry to wake you up in the middle of the night, sir, but I have some unfortunate news for you. Your sister is dead. What are you talking about? What do you mean what I'm talking about? I found your sister's corpse right here on the street. Well, I haven't seen her myself, so she's alive to me. Sir, what the hell do you mean? Your sister is right here in front of me. You should come here and see it for yourself. Well, as long as I do not see her corpse myself, she's fine, officer. There's no need to worry. Sir, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Don't worry, I'll call her tomorrow. You can't be serious. Whatever you say, have a nice evening. Sir, wait. Sir! Oh my god, what's wrong with people these days? Bring in the back. Okay, no more wasting time. Let's finish up the story. Unfortunately, I cannot go into detail for each ending of this game for multiple reasons. 1. It will make the video too long. 2. Most of the endings are almost the same. And 3. If you haven't played this game already, I don't want to destroy your motivation of replaying the game over and over again. While not having played the other Clock Tower games, I did learn some details that will make a certain ending of this game canon. And for that, this is how I personally think the story will go. So Jennifer finds Laura dead in the bathroom and also meets Bobby for the first time. She sees Annie fall from the second story in the courtyard. She never meets up with Mary in the phone room, but she does learn about her secrets when she finds her father's corpse in the West Wing. You find Lode in the underground, and she provides you with some crucial information. After dealing with Dan, Jennifer escapes through an elevator and she goes to the second floor. When she gets there, she confronts Mary, she escapes her attack, Mary summons Bobby, and they both go after Jennifer towards the actual clock tower. Mary catches up to Jenny on the ladder, but she kicks her in the face, thus falling to her death. And her last chance of dealing with Bobby is to pull the levers to ring the bell of the tower. This causes Bobby to have hearing problems and he falls into the gears of the clock. The game ends with Jennifer walking outside, staring at the sky as the rain proceeds to stop in a matter of seconds. I think you heard me clearly. The canon part of this game is that Jennifer survives and both Laura and Annie die. It's confirmed by the sequels that neither of them made it out of this incident. Sucks for them, but what can I do? So that was Clock Tower. Very unique take on the genre, but it does show its age, unfortunately. Clock Tower is a classic for so many good reasons. Even though it doesn't feature a lot of survival horror elements, it still managed to do something unique, thus separating itself from other competitors like Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil. This is probably the very first rendition of a hide-and-seek horror game, just 15 years before Amnesia: The Dark Descent changed everything for better or worse. I think it's also one of the very first horror games that features psychological elements, because it has a very big focus on the atmosphere rather than the gore. Unfortunately, it has not aged particularly well for so many reasons. The map structure is very inconsistent, there isn't much level and content variety, the supporting characters only serve as steps for certain endings which makes them one-dimensional, and most of the endings are almost the same with only a few key differences. I think my favorite part of the game is reading the lore and learning about the villains of this game. I enjoyed doing that more than actually playing the game itself, because the point and click loop gets old very quickly and it doesn't really have a place in the modern era of the survival horror genre. That doesn't mean I didn't like the game. I did actually enjoy it a lot. I just believe that this is one of the old school games that deserves like a full remake, like Resident Evil 2, Dead Space, and Silent Hill 2, because it has a lot of potential to expand upon its characters, its antagonists, the gameplay loop, and the puzzle variety. Alright, this is all I had to say for today. Let's finish this up and represent my final verdict. If you are a fan of 2D point-and-click horror games, this game should definitely be on your wish list. However, if you have a problem with games that lack content variety and take less than 2 hours to finish, you should set your expectations to 0. I think it would be safer for you to buy this game when it drops on sale.
I really hope that with the success of this port of the game, we actually get to see more from this franchise. Whether it's a remake of the original trilogy, or a new game, or whatever. This IP deserves to become part of the survival horror family of the modern era. Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell.